All we need is that freedom to allow people to be who they are without judgment. And sometimes people are going to be critical. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Welcome back, everybody. So glad you're here joining me on a Monday. Well, if you're listening to this live on a Monday morning or afternoon or evening, I guess, depending on where you are in the world, welcome. So glad you're here spending time with me, whatever day it is. And today we are talking about something that comes up all of the time when I'm working with my amazing parents inside of my group. It's about other people's opinions. We spend so much time, so much of our life trying to control people's opinions of us. I mean, if you really take the time to think how much of your time you're spending trying to control other people or thinking about what they're thinking about, thinking thoughts like, what will they think of me? Will they like what I'm wearing? Did I say the right thing? Should I try that? What will people think if I try that? What will my mother think? What will my husband think? What will my kids think? It goes on and on and on. It's exhausting. Now, I have seen people twist themselves, especially parents, twist themselves into a life that they don't even want because of their idea of what other people will think or what other people want for them. And that's really, really important to remember. So much of what we do is to control other people's opinions. So let's break this down, because when we're doing this with our parenting, it gets in the way of us being present. It gets in the way of us doing things that feel aligned because we feel the pressure from other people watching us. And we inadvertently make our parenting harder because we don't trust ourselves. So first of all, it's not controlling their opinion. You can't control other people's minds. I want you to really think about this because it's something we forget a lot. We think that we can control whether a person likes us, whether they think we're great, whether they think we're smart or pretty or successful. And I personally have spent so much time trying to be a person that someone liked, pretending, not being totally honest because I wanted this person to have an opinion of me. But you know what? Even if you do all of that, you still can't control their opinion of you. Isn't that good to know? And not only that, when you go through your life twisting and turning yourself into taking action that isn't aligned to what you want or isn't grounded in what matters to you, or maybe not taking action because that's what you think other people want, to try to control someone else's opinion, you're only controlling your thoughts about their opinion. Did you hear that? Your thoughts about their opinion, because you never really know what someone else is thinking. They can tell you that they think you're awesome, but you don't actually know what they're really thinking unless they say, this is actually what I'm really thinking. And the truth is, it's none of your business. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Are you excited? I'm going to tell you this. Honestly, what other people think about you or your parenting or your kids' behavior is none of your business, and it doesn't mean anything about you. All that is their thoughts that they're having based on their worldview, based on what they believe to be true. And when we can accept this, it will help you release that desire, that urge that you have to try to get everybody to like you, which one isn't even possible. I have this concept called the common denominator. You are the common denominator in your life. And I want you to imagine that you're in a party. And let's say there's, when I go to a family party, there's 50 people there, the oldest of 7. So there's lots of people, lots of kids. So you walk into this party and they're excited to see you, right? And you go there and you see these people and you're talking and you're chatting and you're sharing stories and you're catching up. Now, if their opinion of you is based on you and what you said and what you did, then every family member in this hypothetical family party that I've just walked us all into, every one of those family members is going to have the exact same opinion of you because you are the common denominator, right? You showed up, you said the same things to all of the people, told them all the same stories, you were wearing the same thing. Obviously, you're the same person. So every single person would have the exact same opinion of you. Now, if you were the one controlling the opinion of how they thought about you, they would have that exact same opinion of you, but they don't, do they? You look at all the family members that are here at this hypothetical party, And every single one of them has an opinion of you based on them. Maybe you remind them of something that happened when you were a child. Maybe they hate your outfit. They think it's terrible. So when you walk in the door, they're instantly judging the clothing you're wearing. Maybe they saw something you posted on social media last week and they thought it was ridiculous. You're oversharing again. Or maybe you walk in the door and your younger sister adores your outfit, thought what you posted on social media was absolutely brilliant, and has fantastic thoughts about you. They may all like you, but they have different thoughts about you. They don't have the same exact opinion of you. You don't know why they like you. You don't know why they don't like you. And in fact, you can't possibly understand everything that's happening in their life, everything that's currently going on in their brain, preferences. That's going to determine whether they like you or not. So when you come in and you try to act nice and you show up in a certain way so that someone will like you, what happens is you don't even show up as yourself. You show up as some version of yourself that's trying to please other people. It's trying to be cool. It's trying to act cool, trying to be liked. I see this with my teenagers all of the time, trying to control, thinking that they have the power to get other people to have a certain opinion of them. It's so true. We all do it. We all want to show up friendly and happy and interested. We all want to be respected. But here's the thing. If you show up as a version of yourself that you think someone will like, even if they do love you, even if they do really like the way you were that night, they don't really love you because they don't know the real you. Because you're acting in a way that you think would be pleasing to them. So that version that they liked isn't even fully authentically you. I hear this with parents all of the time. They go to their parents' house, they go to their friend's house, or they meet up at the park with somebody, and they're constantly second guessing their decisions, trying to figure out how they want to show up with their kids. Do I need to come down with a really heavy consequence because they just did this, and this friend will think this about me? They'll think less of me. They'll think I'm not responsible, or my mom. She's even said something to me that you've got to really lay down the law, and they question themselves. Even though they know, we talk about this all of the time on the show, the developmentally sound way to parent, they question themselves because we get into this loop of wanting everyone to like us. So a long time ago, I decided I was going to start learning how to show up for myself. And you know what? This is no small task for someone like me because I'm pretty loud. I'm kind of out there. If I'm not careful, I'm not filtered very much, and I say my mind, and I have opinions, and I like certain things. I'm unique. All of us are unique. I like to change things up with my hair, with my house, with my life. I like learning, and so because of that, I'm constantly changing up my life. And some people have judged that. They've told me, and when they've told me, there have been times where I have wanted to wither away. I remember, and this just shows how I've always been this kind of crazy out there kind of person. When I was in high school, this tape surfaced. It sounds really bad. It's not that bad, but it was very embarrassing for me. So my older cousin, who was quite a bit older than me, I can't remember, maybe 6 to 8 years older than me. She was amazing. Jamie, if you're listening to this, I love you. Absolutely idolized her as a kid. When I was quite young, I think I was still in elementary school when she moved off to college. And I made her a cassette tape. States how old I am. I made her this cassette tape. And I remember making the tape. I couldn't remember anything I put on the tape. But when I was in high school, Jamie gave this tape to my mom because she had found it when they were unpacking or moving. And she said, "You've got to have this. It's so funny." And I come home from school one day or an activity, something. I came home. All my family was there. They had the cassette tape on the kitchen table. They play it for me. And I remember all the eyes just looking at me. And I'm singing this song, Dance Around Me. I was in elementary school, 5, 6, 7. I was full of myself. I was the oldest. I fully embraced all of that at the time, uninhibited. And I about died inside because everyone was laughing at me and telling me, "Oh my gosh, this is just how you are. You try to orchestrate everything. You try to be in charge. You're bossy, blah, blah, blah." And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I need to not show up like this. I need to pull myself down, mute myself, and I'm embarrassed about who I am. And that dictated me for a while. That really dictated is probably not the right word, but that really directed the way I showed up for many years. And so when I realized what I was doing, I was muting myself. I was apologizing for who I was. I made a commitment to try to learn how to be me again, how to show up in a way that I felt was authentically me. And it's a journey. There's still times where I recognize myself muting or pulling back. And then this isn't saying that we should sometimes, depending on the situation, it calls for us to be more maybe cautious in what we say or show up in a certain way as socially appropriate, 100%. However, we really are going to do ourselves a disservice if we try to change ourselves and hide parts of ourselves because we're trying to get them to like us. We're trying to get people to have a certain opinion of us. It doesn't work. We're going to keep unpacking how this isn't even possible, but it also feels inauthentic. We feel weird and we show up strange, and people get that strange vibe from us. They can tell that we're apprehensive, we're nervous, we're second guessing ourselves. So everyone, think about how you're showing up. Think about who you're being in the world. And if you are worried about other people's opinions, and when you are, do you change or mute or alter yourself? So when I started practicing this intentionally, I thought, okay, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be uninhibited. I'm going to really accept myself first, which I believe is important. It's vital if we're going to put ourselves out there. I decided if I started showing up and telling the truth of being who I am, and I stopped trying to hide the parts of me I didn't like, and I stopped trying to pretend to be someone I wasn't, that I could just be myself, and the people that were my people that resonated with that they would like me. And I wouldn't have so much anxiety about how am I supposed to act. I would just show up. This is who I am. This is who I'm meant to be. This is how I was made. I hope you like it. And if you don't like it, then, totally fine. No harm done. I'm not for everybody. I love the saying that you can be the juiciest peach in the world, but there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like peaches. And it's not the peach's fault. It's just that they have a preference against peaches. They don't like peaches. Peaches aren't for them. And that has really honestly changed my life, because what's happened is there have been people that haven't liked me, but there are people that do. And the people that I totally dig, people I love being with, that I really appreciate and love me, I know that I'm being me with them. And the best part of all of this is that I get to be the person I am, that I get to show up, I get to be myself, and I'm okay with people liking me or not liking me. I love being around people that can be themselves around me. And that is something I create when I am comfortable being around me, being myself around me. There's this relaxation, this comfort level, and I love that. And it has been a process, and it still pops up from time to time. I'm not perfect at this, but this has been a game changer. First understanding this concept of common denominator and knowing that I really can't be the one that decides whether someone likes me or not. It's not up to me. It's up to them and to their experience and their life and their preference. That has set me free. I still remember, I don't know if I've told this story on here. I think I tell it in my book, but I'm standing at my kitchen sink, washing some dishes, and these two women are sitting outside. And they're two women that I've been extremely close with for a long period of time. I didn't understand what had happened, but some stuff had happened, and we weren't as close as we used to be. And I remember a lot of things happened around that moment, but I remember being super sad that the relationship had changed, and it felt really out of my control. I tried in a really inauthentic way. It goes right along with what we're talking about today, where I tried to be a person they would like, and I just wasn't able to figure it out. Thank goodness. It was such a gift. That didn't work out, because otherwise I would have kept twisting and turning myself into someone that I wasn't. And in retrospect, what happened is I had just changed as a person. I was doing a lot of self-work. I was doing a lot of things to be more authentic. I was starting down this path of being okay that people didn't like me, still struggling with it immensely, but I was realizing the power of it. And I can look back now and say, oh, it's just because you had different ideas about the world. You had different preferences. You had, just different goals for what you were trying to accomplish. And they didn't align anymore. So they didn't prefer to hang out with you like they used to. I can see that clearly now and so grateful for it. But at the time, it was very painful. And I was had been stuck in a loop for a couple of years with these, there were actually 3 women, but 2 were sitting outside my front door at that time, or at the park that I could see from my house, from my front window that was above my kitchen sink. And I had tried and tried and tried in the most graspy, inauthentic way. I look back and think, what were you thinking? But I was wanting to be accepted. And as humans, we want to be accepted. We want to be part of the tribe. If we are part of the tribe, then we survive. We get to stay in the group. We get to eat. We get to be safe. That's genetically how we're programmed. So it makes sense that we have this drive for people to like us. I get it. And in the moment, that drive was all encompassing. I felt sad. I cried. I thought, what has happened? I felt so rejected. But at the almost the same time, I could feel that on the other hand, that it was okay because I was being me and I was really happy with who I was. So I was grieving the relationship and the change that had happened, a really significant change that had happened in the friendship and the time we were spending together. That was really sad for me. But on the other hand, I was feeling so much gratitude for myself for being me, finally, for being me and not being creepy or weird or needy. Because when we want people to like them, and I had done this, I had chased them down. I wasn't running after them, but I had, in my mind, emotionally tried to figure out on my own. And then when I was with them, tried to act in the way that they would like me, like a crazy person, and trying to get them to want to like me. And it just, of course they didn't want to. It was weird and needy, but also as I can look back, I can see with more clarity that I don't even know if they didn't like me. I have no idea. They've never told me they didn't like me. My thought was they don't like me anymore. But in hindsight, I don't even think it was that. It was they were talking and doing things that I wasn't doing anymore. And it probably wasn't as fun to be with me when they wanted to do their old patterns and I wasn't doing that anymore. And so life gives us these opportunities, these moments in our life to help us see things that will help us and that will serve us. And understanding that it was okay. It was okay. I didn't die. It was okay that they didn't like me or that they just didn't prefer to be around me like we used to be around each other. That painful experience was also the most beautiful experience. And it wasn't personal. I can see that now. It wasn't personal. There wasn't anything wrong with me. There wasn't anything wrong with them. We just grew apart. But at the time, my brain was freaking out and I was trying to get everyone to like me. We can't get everyone to like you. And to be honest, like I said, I'm not even saying they don't like me. They just didn't want to hang out all the time. We had different ideas, different preferences, different habits, different things that we were going after. So it makes sense. So don't do that. I'm going to share from my experience. Don't do that. It's ill-advised. If somebody isn't into you, if somebody doesn't want to be your friend, that's okay. If they want to judge you for what you're wearing or for how you're living, totally fine. Or for how you're parenting, not a problem. Not a problem. Everyone gets to have their own opinion. It's safe. It's safe. This is a powerful lesson. I have a family member who thinks that connection-based parenting is the most ridiculous thing that they've ever heard of. And that's okay. I actually now am very entertained by it because they don't really understand what it's about. They've just said little passing comments about it. And I don't even try to convince them. I just enjoy their company. I can appreciate where they're coming from. It's okay. We don't have to see eye to eye on everything. And wow, I mean, such a better place. We are in such a better place when we can get into that feeling of, instead of duality, right, wrong, good, bad. It's just everyone's having their experience, their life experience. And I want to honor it. And I don't need their experience to be my experience. I don't need someone else to agree with everything I do, every way I parent, the relationships I have, where I decide to live. I get to just let them have whatever thoughts they have about me. And it's great. It's not a problem. I totally understand why people have different opinions now. I'm getting better and better each passing year at feeling nothing but love. So give people permission to judge you. Give people permission to have their opinion of you. Give people permission not to like you. And then notice what will happen, what will bloom for you. You'll have more love, more acceptance. Your energy won't be tied up trying to convince people to like you. You'll be able to be redirected to the things that matter most to you. Now, the reason why we don't want people not to like us is because of what we make it mean. So let's talk about that for a second. What does it mean when someone doesn't like you? What does it mean when someone judges you? What we're tempted to make it mean is that we're unlikable. That's what I made it mean when I saw those 2 women out in the park in front of my house. Oh, I'm unlikable. they don't like me. Something's wrong with me. If this person doesn't like me, then I'm unlikable. But remember, when someone likes you or doesn't like you, it has nothing to do with you. Whether someone likes a peach or doesn't like a peach, it's just their opinion. It's their desire, their opinion, their perspective. And if you think about it like that, how are people's opinions formed? You know, how you ever had anybody that when you first met them, you got a weird first impression. Maybe you initially were like, I'm not sure I like that person. So I've had that occasionally. And what's crazy is sometimes when we have that first impression, if we are open to being wrong and to not jump to these conclusions that our subconscious brain wants to jump to, we can end up having that person be one of our best friends. It can really open up so much for us when we keep the possibilities open. Your brain's going to make judgments. It's going to want to have an opinion about everyone you meet. Allow yourself to not run down that rabbit hole of what that opinion that's being presented to you by your brain may or may not mean. Because why we have maybe that initial opinion, it's going to be based on your history, on your preferences, on some stories you have about people based on first impressions. You need to remember that other people have that too. Whether they like you or not, whether they have opinion about you that's positive or negative, that opinion about you is based on so many things you have no control over. You can't control over that, the processes, the filters. So whether they like you or not, whatever their opinion is, it's based on so many things that you have no idea about, that you can't control, and you will exhaust yourself trying to. So remember that whether they like peaches or not, it's not something you can control. Whether they like you or they don't like you, it's not something you can control. You can just relax and be the best darn peach you can possibly be. Show up authentic to who you are. And the people who like that flavor, they're going to like it. And the people that don't, they aren't. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not amazing. It just is. And when you show up this way and you let them have the opinion they have, it's amazing to do this for yourself. Now, one of the things, that is the most frightening, I would say for many of us, is criticism. So I'll do this work with parents that I'm working with inside of League, whether we're in Pivot or Mastery, and they'll say to me, I can let people not like me. I can let people, prefer someone else, but I don't want them to criticize me. I don't want to put myself in a position where they're going to, quote unquote, hurt me. Here's the truth though, you all. When you become a parent, you're setting yourself up for criticism. That's just the way it is. When you become a human, we set ourselves up for criticism, but especially when we step into the role of parenting, it's like open ground. Your kids, your friends, your parents, people are going to say you're doing it wrong. With your kids, they're going to say you cooked the wrong food. Why are you getting them to bed so early? Why are you being completely ridiculous and asking them to do chores? They're going to criticize you. They're going to think you're doing it wrong. Your mother-in-law is going to maybe drop a little comment about your kid's bad behavior. Your friend's going to try to criticize you for how you did or didn't do something. It's just par for the course. I thought I had a good handle on this. I got better. I saw these two friends outside my window. I was, able to handle it and navigate it and use it as a catalyst to get better. But when I wrote my book, it's called Connect Method Parenting. If you haven't checked it out, it's on Amazon. It opened up the Pandora box. It really showed me where I still had some gaps in this capacity. Because when you put something out, and I'd been on social media for a while talking about it, and I'd had some experiences where people really pushed back and didn't agree with me, and I'd gotten through it, and it was fine. I've survived, and I had so much more capacity, so much more emotional resilience. When I put my book on Amazon, though, I remember the night before it went live in the store, I couldn't sleep because it felt so vulnerable to put all of myself on paper and then let somebody buy that clump of paper in a book form and decide, and then be able to say something in one of those comments, the reviews they have under the books in Amazon, and know that there might be people who say they think this is the worst idea ever. With social media, it felt as the worst case scenario, just delete the post if it got really bad. But there was no deleting a book or going into someone's house and taking my book back and saying, never mind. I apologize. It's okay. It was the ultimate test for me at that point. That was the highest I had gotten with being okay with other people's opinions of me. Because when you open yourself up to that, it's a free-for-all. You're like, hey, if you hate me, if you hate the book, if you hate the material, feel free to write about it for millions of people to read. Or you put out a YouTube video, or when I put out the podcast, when I started this podcast, I had a similar fear of just, oh my gosh, here it is again. I'm so afraid of what people will say, the criticism, the thoughts they'll have about me. And you have to just look at that in the face. There's so many layers of getting better at letting other people believe what they want to and being okay with them believing whatever they believe. I mean, you put out anything into the world, whether it's something that you've created for dinner, post that you put on Facebook, a book that you write, you show up at the park and you're putting out for everyone to see at the park the way you're parenting, and they can verbalize their opinions of that. So I have way too many parents that are coming up with this as a fear to not talk about it on the podcast. So that's why we're talking about it. And it's terrifying for them because they have a fear of criticism. And what I just want to say is it's going to happen either way. Whether you're aware of the criticism or not, it's going to happen. So let's talk about that for a minute. What is it about criticism that is so devastating for us? I mean, what is criticism? It's basically, this is my definition, someone's opinion of you. You know, I've had people write reviews on my book that clearly didn't really read my book. I had someone write, it felt like a knife to the heart when I read it, that, and you know, it's funny too, is they wrote this review, but they didn't put their name, just said Amazon customer, which I think you can select whether you want to be anonymous or not, which is fine. We can totally have anonymous comments, but it's funny now to think about, you know, this anonymous person who wouldn't even put their name behind the comment and how it affected me. At first, it was just a punch to the gut. And it said, this book is not research based. I thought, well, that's really interesting because there's footnotes all along the book that has references to studies that I had, you know, discovered along the way that what I was writing was based on. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. But, you know, when I first read it, I thought, oh my gosh, maybe she's right. Maybe I totally just made this up. Because then it goes on to say it's more like one person's opinion or one person's personal experience, has a good ideas, but could probably be summed up in a couple infographics. And I was like, oh my gosh, should I just take the book down? I remember reading it and thinking, oh, okay, deep breaths. Clearly, they didn't look at the footnotes that showed the research I used to back up the book. And even though I love infographics and I love putting them on social media, I knew I couldn't sum up the book in a couple of infographics. So there was that I wrestled with. It was part of me feels like withdrawing the book and taking it off the market. And part of me can see that they get to have this opinion and I don't need to put too much stock in it because I did put footnotes for the research. There were a ton of other comments or reviews at the time that were talking about how beneficial it was for them. I'd worked with so many clients up to that point, which had helped me create even more of a foundation for the book and what I wrote about. And I'm not a doctor. I'm a nurse. And I love research. I love science, but I wasn't a PhD. I was, though, and this was really fascinating. And at the time, I didn't give myself credit for this. I was a mom of 6. So if I had been a theorist, but not been able to spend that much time in the trenches with my kids, I'm sure from the outside, I would have the right letters behind my name, not just a nurse, but something that maybe was more accepted as a developmentalist or something, which, by the way, I would love. Maybe I still will go and get all that training that would allow me to get those numbers. I mean, I do a lot of training, but I feel more passionate about teaching what's working versus just going and getting all the boxes checked. So anyway, I digress. But what I want to say is that there is a level of knee-deep learning that happened by being a mom of 6. And my kids now, my oldest is turning 25 this year, which is crazy because I'm pretty sure I'm 25 still. I feel 25, but I'm clearly not. And my youngest just turned 16. And so there's been a lot of years in the trenches going through all the ages and stages and being able to apply the theories of developmental psychology, of the impact of attachment theory. I love Dr. Neufeld. You hear me talk about him a lot. I love his theory. So I was able to take what I learned from him. They're doing tons of trainings and apply it in real time with the kids, which taught me something that was beneficial. So I read this review and I remember it bothered me that they criticized me and gave me low stars. It really bugged me. And I really had some work to do on it. I really had to think about, wow, how could I have made this better for this person? So I finally got there after I went through all my spinning that I just described, all the things. Oh my gosh. Can they be right? maybe this is a terrible idea that I wrote a book, blah, 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 blah. I went through all of that. And then I thought, no, I shared authentically what worked in a way that felt really aligned to me, that was proven by the science that backed it up and the real world experience I had in my own life and with the parents I'd worked with. So I was like, no, I feel good. So then I was able to get out of the spinning and trying to control her opinion of me and get into, okay, how could I have made this better for this person? Now that stuff, when you're spinning, is going to make you nuts. It's going to make you absolutely nuts because we can't please everybody. There are going to be people, no matter how great I wrote the book, even if I had quoted all of the research that this person thought was missing and all the things, they still could have found something that wasn't okay, that they didn't like. So some people are just not going to like the stuff you do. They may not say it, and you may not be put in a position where they're going to say it publicly. Maybe they'll only say it privately, but it doesn't matter, because if you can just hear, whether it's a public criticism or a private criticism, whether it's your mother-in-law when you go to visit, your kids complaining about dinner, your husband saying something, some feedback, a friend, whoever it is, they say something, they criticize you. If you can handle that in your own mind, you can handle it anywhere. So sure, I had some new learning to do when I wrote my book and I saw that review. It's like, ooh, let's explore this. But I was able to handle it and get to a good place because I had already learned to handle criticism. So if we can handle people not liking you, if you can handle that, your life will explode. What you'll be willing to do, the chances you'll be willing to take will explode. The way you show up for your kids will revolutionize. Everything will change. You'll be okay if there's tension. You'll be okay if there's pushback. You're not going to make it mean anything about them or you. You're just going to be able to hold space for their experience of life and their experience of you if you're willing to be criticized. If you're willing for them not to like you all of the time, you won't respond in kind because you'll know that those words, the critiques that they're sharing are just about them. And sure, you might look at that and say, where is the truth in here? What could I learn from this? And you'll take the feedback, but you'll do it in a way that's productive. Your prefrontal cortex will be on. You'll be able to hear the truthfulness without being activated. And when we're activated and we go into defensive mode and we're trying to prove that they're wrong, we don't hear it. It doesn't integrate. It doesn't change us. We just get more defended. So that is what I'm encouraging you to do here. And I know that if that sounds amazingly stupid and you're like, hey, let's get up and get criticized today. But that is what I'm encouraging you to do. Not do things to have people criticize you, but be open to the criticism that you get today and allow it to transform you. Be willing to put yourself out there and let your kids have an opinion of you. I mean, you look at the most successful people out there, they all have a lot of haters, a lot. And it doesn't matter how amazing that person is. There's going to be somebody who doesn't like them for one reason or another. It doesn't matter what they've done in the world. The more people that you know and the more you stand for something, the more you're authentically you, chances are the more people are going to have opinions of you, both positive and negative. And if you can allow space for that in your life, then what happens is your life changes. It's kind of like the work that I did on myself when I started showing up. People had opinions, strong opinions about the way I was sharing parenting. Or when I started homeschooling my kids, I homeschooled my kids for a period of time. And there were lots of people who had lots of opinions about that decision, negative and positive. And I was really able to find my people and to find myself, which is huge, find myself as I learned to be more comfortable with myself and let people have whatever opinions they wanted. It's a beautiful thing. It's really a beautiful thing. So if one of your kids said, Mom, you're so rude. Mom, why do you make us do these chores? It's so dumb. You know, these kinds of things are going to happen all of the time. And if we're not careful, we're going to get defended against them, or we might take it personal and be devastated. We might feel like something has gone wrong. And that's because we are making them mean something. And that's the key. That is the key. Criticism in and of itself is not painful. It's when somebody criticizes us and we take it on and we believe it and we make it mean something about ourselves. That's when criticism becomes painful. Now, I use this example because it's ridiculous, but if someone told you, I hate your purple eyes, and as far as I know, no humans have purple eyes, you wouldn't get devastated by them saying that because you don't have purple eyes. But someone makes a criticism towards you, and that's the key. It's because you don't believe it. It doesn't make sense. You don't take it on. You don't need to defend it. It's something that you know is not true for you. But when we kind of believe it or we doubt ourselves or we're trying to navigate the life we have and get everybody to like us, that's what we're trying to orchestrate. So if they say, hey, Mom, it's so dumb you're making me make my bed every day. And one of my sons said this to me. He said, I'm getting up and 12 hours later, I'm getting back into the bed and it's going to be messy again. So it's completely unreasonable. Like, I don't see the point of making my bed ever. So depending on how we take that comment in, is he criticizing me? Do I feel a little bit guilty in how I'm asking him to make the bed? Or am I just requesting something because of the way I want to run my house? But what if I just let that wash over me? When someone criticizes you and there's part of you that believes it, you believe what they're saying and it gets to you, that's why we get defended. That's why we get worked up. And if someone criticizes you and you make it mean that their opinion means something about you, that's when you get into trouble. That's when you really start hiding and getting weird, trying to get away from that criticism because you don't want to expose yourself to that. So you start avoiding asking your kids to do anything because you can't handle the criticism. You can't handle the pushback. You make it mean if they push back, then I'm not being a good parent. They should never push back. There should never be tension. There should never be any kind of negative emotion in our house. Well, that's not true. We're all humans. There's going to be pushback. Your kids aren't going to like all the requests or the rules or the structure that you've created in your home. They might not want to do their dishes ever. That's okay. That's totally fine. And when they say, I don't think I should have to do dishes, you can just see that as their opinion of themselves. You can just see that as a thought that they're having about their life. It's not a statement about you. So the reason you don't want to expose yourself to criticism is because of what you're making it mean about you. That's really good to know. You're the one causing all of your pain, not the people that are criticizing you, but you believing their criticism, you taking it on. Now, I'm not saying there's situations that are so negative and toxic that they're not going to get to you and you should get out of those. Absolutely. But the criticism that we're getting from our kids or our spouse or our mother-in-law or our friends, when we have the capacity, which might not be in the moment with my situation with my friends that I was describing, like in the moment, I was really, I call it limbic. That's the part of our brain that goes really emotional. I was really limbic. Emotions were very high. My intelligence was very low. I was not capable of seeing that I had any choice in the matter. But eventually, and this is what we're doing inside of League, in Pivot, and in Mastery, where we hold that space and someone can come and say, here's my messy self. This happened and I'm so triggered and I would like to have more freedom, more choice in the situation right now. It feels out of control. Help me. And then we work through it. So there's this time and place where we can see the criticism that other people are having, our kids are having, the pushback, the dynamics in our home that we're making mean something about us. We need them to stop, because otherwise we're unworthy or incapable or not good enough. And we can turn it around so that it has actually the opposite effect. We can see how the person, the child with parenting, a lot of time it's our kids, that they're feeling that something's not working for them. And can I use this moment, this pushback to bring us closer together? Can I use this moment to fuel my compassion, to up-level my ability to let my kids think whatever they want of me without it triggering me? Can I use this moment to iterate, to increase my capacity for compassion so that when my kids push back, I'm just pushing out into the world so much love, so much kindness, so much patience. And I might need to be firm about something too. Like with my son, it was, yeah, but we're going to make the bed anyway. But because I didn't make his criticism mean that I was a bad mom or that he was a bad person, it was just, oh, this is just information. So that's what I mean. So being able to do this, that means that you can show up. You're not being a vanilla, bland parent. You're not being passive. You are being yourself. And your kids might not like everything you do, but you're going to be okay with that. Okay? So I really want to encourage you to gather up some criticism that's happened in your life. You're like, great assignment, Andy. Yes, gather up the criticism, see how you've reacted to it, and then start to inspect it. Start to see, oh, this is what I'm creating in my life. Another way that a lot of us have dealt with criticism is we hide, and then we just don't show up as much as we would normally show up because we feel like we can't handle the criticism. So we shut down, and we feel like we just can't handle our kids or our life or managing anything. Or we might lash back. We might say, if you're going to criticize me, then I'm going to criticize you. Of course, that's happening subconsciously. If you're going to criticize me, then I'm going to criticize you, right? So we attack them. And then you've created this resisting situation where you're judging someone and you're looking at them and thinking they're not great. And it's like you're trying to annihilate the source, which is completely unnecessary. It's okay for our kids to have an opinion based on their life experience, which is very different than ours, or our mother-in-law or our spouse or our friend to have a very different opinion based on them, based on what they know about you, based on what they know about life. A lot of people that criticize you don't even really know you. And if your kids say it, you're like, well, my kids know me. Do they really understand? I don't know. If they can really understand the role of a parent until they're one. So yeah, they know you, but kind of the best they can. They know just a piece of you, and that's okay. But when you come back at them and you start criticizing them, it brings more tension into that situation, into the world. It's not necessary, nor is it productive. All we need is that freedom to allow people to be who they are without judgment. And sometimes people are going to be critical. Can you hold space for someone to be critical? Can you allow that? That's a really important question to ask. And it's okay if you can't right now. It's okay. It can be a goal. It's a goal of mine. I've made huge progress with it. I continue to work on it. Now, let's talk a little bit about approval versus aversion. So many of us are approval addicts. We are locked into these patterns from our childhood. We literally are trained to perform, to get approval. So we get good grades. We are polite. We say please and thank you. We clean our room. And wanting this external validation becomes a pattern. It becomes a habit. And we don't even realize it. So we turn into adults and we're still seeking for this external validation. And let me just add, it's not always a negative thing to be motivated by approval, to want to progress. It's good. Humans want to progress. It's part of us. We just don't want to do it to get approval, to get that validation, because that becomes a negative thing. Because when we don't get approval, then we turn inward and we criticize ourselves. And often we don't, because people aren't paying attention to us enough to approve us. They're busy. Or our kids just don't have the wherewithal. They don't understand what we're doing for them. They miss it. Not because they're trying to, they're just not paying enough attention. They don't have the perspective to understand it. And so we become devastated. We really can become devastated by the lack of this. And on the other hand, we have people who have the aversion to what we're doing. And that's what I think is the opposite of approval. And that is completely devastating, right? The lack of approval is devastating. But then if someone is paying attention to you, and they don't like what you do, you get an F on the paper as a kid, that happened to you, and that's in our grown-up adult life, then we're devastated. So we try to do something and then it doesn't work and we fail and then we're devastated. And are you willing to live your life in a way that you're not seeking that approval anymore? When you're not in that state of the emotional capacity of a child, which all of us sometimes dip into emotional childhood. It's just part of life. We go limbic, we have something happen, we get triggered. It's not a problem. But can we start noticing, oh, there I am again, trying to seek external validation, trying to find my worth by other people's opinions, when we're constantly on the lookout for these things and we notice it whenever we notice it, which is typically after the fact to begin with, and then we get better and better at noticing it in real life, then we get to change our life. We get to change our parenting. We have the fuel and the capacity to show up as a compassionate, consistent, confident parent no matter what our kids do. And we do that regardless of if we're getting applause or approval. If nobody notices all of the things we do it because we want to do it. And it's fueled from a desire of connection, which I believe I've never met a parent that hasn't had this as their drive. They want to connect. They want to have a good relationship. They want to handle off-track behavior in a way they respect. They want all these things, but then they get into the moment. This was my reality too when I first started parenting. You get into the moment and if all of your intentions fly out the window and you turn into a much less mature human. And you walk away thinking, what happened? Why was I so triggered that my kids just told me no? Part of it can be that we're stuck in this external validation loop. So seeing it in your life, where am I looking for approval outside of me? Why? How does it make sense? Tell your nervous system, thank you, nervous system, for trying to protect me. I know that this came from a place that I needed it. It was created at a time and a place where I really needed it. When we're children, we really need to know that we're secure in our relationships with our parents. So we come by it honestly. But as we become more independent, more viable, more capable of taking care of ourselves, we are able to look at our tendency that we've had in the past to seek external validation and realize it's no longer serving me. It's no longer allowing me to be the best person that I want to be for my kids and myself. But our limbic system doesn't know that. It's trying to keep us connected to people. It's trying to do its work, even when we've outgrown that need to have the external validation from people, so we can start to provide it for ourselves. Now, the bottom line is we want people to like us because we want to feel like we're good. That's why we're seeking approval. A lot of us have been trained by society, just how we live, that to be a good girl or a good boy, we need to do the right thing, and that's how we get approval. So it's really important to me that you don't beat yourself up over stuff like this, that you don't give yourself a hard time for wanting this external validation, wanting this approval from the outside, because it's a pattern that has been developed and it's served you in so many ways. But it's also important to recognize that we still have it, because when we don't get approval, so many of us, when we're not noticing this tendency and realizing, oh, I want to have self-validation, I want to be in a place where I'm self-authoring my life and I don't need the approval from others, and we're working on that. But when we don't see that and we just get stuck in this loop and we're looking for approval, we can use that lack of approval or lack of validation to stop taking action, to stop showing up, to stop working towards being the best version of ourselves, because we aren't getting that approval. We aren't getting people to have always good opinions of us. So therefore we turn it on ourselves. We don't have to do this, but if we're not aware, we will. A lot of us will. So you're going to end up doing a lot of stuff that you don't even want to do because you're trying to get the approval from somebody, approval from your kids. I've talked to so many parents who are worried about having challenging conversations with their kids around technology is a huge one, around just rules, conduct, helping with the house, because they're so worried about what their kids might say in the pushback. And a lot of it goes back to this root of being afraid of what will happen if my kids don't approve of me, if they push back, that I'm going to interpret their tension or the conflict and make that mean something negative about me or negative about my kids. Where in reality, it doesn't mean anything about anybody. It's just information. Behavior, words, just information. So think about this. What would it take to get your own approval of yourself? What would it look like to be proud of yourself for doing something? What do you already approve of in your life? What would your life look like if you looked at your life and acknowledged the wins and you didn't need somebody else to do it for you? And with parenting, I know it can feel very full of a lot of responsibilities and a huge lack in gratitude from our kids. They're not approving us. They're not saying, thanks, Mom, for all the hard work you're doing. We get that occasionally, but a lot of times we're not getting it. And when your spouse or your partner comes home, sometimes they don't say it either because they're exhausted. It's not that they don't see it, but what if we didn't need it? So if you decide to own your approval of yourself, self-validate, self-author, and you also make room in your life for other people not to like you, and you recognize that the reason you want them to like you is because you've made it mean something about yourself, and instead now you can make it mean something else about yourself. You don't even need that anymore. You can feel that way, that you can feel that approval, you can feel that validation, you can feel the success without them saying it to you, without them even liking you. That's freedom. I mean, it's great if someone approves of you. That's fantastic. But now you don't need it. You can want it. It feels good, but I don't need it to feel confident, to feel worthy. So if you decide for yourself, like, I'm going to like me, I'm going to figure out what I approve of, and then I'm going to go out and do that. And I'm going to keep doing that, even if someone else doesn't approve of it. That's when magic happens. That's when in your family life, in your relationships, in your professional life, in every area of your life, that's how you evolve into the best version of yourself, by actually owning that you are the only one that needs to give yourself approval. It's not somebody else's job. It's not someone else's job to like you. And in fact, if somebody else doesn't like you, that's okay. It's a prerogative. You don't need to negotiate with them over their opinion of you. Do you like me? Do you not like me? That's what I wanted to do with my friends. That's what I had, honestly, not in those exact words, but I had kind of done that. I was like, come on, what did I do? How did I mess up? Why is this different? They didn't have anything to tell me. They didn't know. And it was weird. But eventually I realized, oh, it's just my responsibility to like me. It's my responsibility. You don't need to negotiate with other people whether they like you or not, okay? And I will tell you, when you decide that that's how you're going to go out and live in the world, it's going to set you free. One of the questions I get a lot is, well, if I don't care if people like me, I'm just going to be a jerk all the time. No, you're actually going to be more kind and loving because you're going to see the struggle that other person is having if they're being jerky or making rude comments without any of the inhibition of your own nervous system trying to defend yourself against it. You'll be able to be more kind and compassionate towards them or towards your children. I tell this to moms all the time because they feel as though if I don't get bothered by their negative comments to me, then I'm going to just be walked all over. No, you're actually going to be more compassionate and more capable of holding on to yourself and helping them with whatever they're struggling. Because if someone else is being rude or obnoxious or really critical or really unkind, it's just a sign that something is really not working for them. Something is really not working for them. And when we're not sucked into that emotional roller coaster that they're on, we don't join them on the roller coaster, we get to see clearly what's happening for them. We get to feel nothing but love and compassion for them. And it changes our experience of them. And it also changes their experience of the world when they get to be up against a nervous system that's sending out through their mirror neurons nothing but love and kindness. So the more relaxed you are, the more welcoming and unconditional you are, the more the world changes, the more capacity you have for impact and influence. When your kids are showing up in a way that's not loving or kind, they're being rude or pushing back or throwing a little temper tantrum, which happens at all ages, you get to be a sounding board of kindness and love. And their nervous system will have the beautiful opportunity to respond to someone who's showing up like that, who's holding space, who's completely honoring who they're being in that moment. You're not trying to manipulate them. You're not trying to control them. You don't need them to change anything about who they're being in that moment. That's a gift. One of the best gifts we can give ourselves and our children. But when we get frustrated, we don't get to show up like that. When you're showing up as yourself and you are willing to let people have whatever thoughts they have about you, you get to show up as the best version of yourself, the most loving, kind, creative, dynamic, smart version of yourself. So I want to say that I think that the most important quality when it comes to allowing other people to judge you and allowing other people not to like you and to being however they want to be is that we get to be unconditionally accepting of other people's opinions. And that's courageous. That's empowering. That's contagious. We get to show up with confidence. We get to show up with love and compassion. And it's not, I don't care what you think of me. It's not like that at all. It's, wow, that's what you think of me. Okay, I hear you. I can tell you're struggling. I get it. And here's a last piece of this that I think might blow your mind. It blew my mind when I finally got this. Maybe when people don't like you, it has nothing to do with you. I've been hinting at that the whole time, but just want to sink that in. If someone doesn't like you, it has nothing to do with you. When I go back to that moment at my kitchen sink and I look out the window and I see these two friends who have clearly not invited me and they know I can see them, so it was even more painful. If I can look at that and say, wow, that has nothing to do with me. Nothing. I'm amazing. They're amazing too. There's a reason. This makes sense. I get to feel whole. I get to feel love. I get to feel compassion. I don't make it mean anything terrible about me. I learn and I grow from it. Maybe there's some things that I want to take away that will allow me to be better in the future with relationships. Maybe I've messed up. It's all beautiful. It's all perfect. Maybe I haven't. Maybe it's just they've had a change of heart. I don't know. But I get to love them and love me, which is not possible when I want them to think something particular about me. When I need my kids to like the fact that I made them dinner and that I sacrifice for them and that all of these things I do for them, I need them to see that. I need them to treat me a certain way. Then I lose my ability to see what's really going on for them that might be preventing them from seeing that. Part of it might just be developmentally. They're not capable of seeing and appreciating me. But if it feels like there's some off-track behavior, I get to remove myself from the drama of it and say, okay, let me take what they're offering that might be true, and let me also lean into the fact that what they are saying and doing has nothing really to do with me and everything to do with them. And it's not a blame thing. This is a loving thing. Like, oh, let me see that with so much compassion. What do they need from me? How can I help them? How can I set them up for success? So that's where you get to keep that confidence in yourself. And when I get an email from one of my parents who says, this Connect Method Parenting has changed my life. Thank you for what you're doing. I've read your book. I've listened to your podcast. I've come to some of your workshops. You're the most amazing thing ever. You're so great. And I do get emails like this, and they're wonderful to read. But I know that isn't about me. I really do know that. I know that they saw something or heard something that ignited something in them. They had the capacity in them, and something I said, which is a privilege and an honor that I get to do this, ignited that inside of them, and they saw it, and then they went to work. Their opinion of me isn't about me. It's about them. And I can still celebrate it, and I can think wonderful things for them, but I know it's not about me. And when I get an email from someone who doesn't like what I do, they're mad, they have a different opinion, they don't think I should be talking about connection, not correction, I can still have compassion and understanding and see where they're coming from and hear their criticism and maybe take some of it and apply it. And it's really good feedback perhaps, and I can use it to improve me or what I'm teaching. But I also know that other people's opinions have nothing to do with me, good or bad. And that's when you find the freedom. Because when you don't need someone else's approval and you don't take it on as something that you need and want, and you're grasping for that validation, you're free from it. Because when you don't take their approval, you don't take that on, and I don't think, oh yes, thank you, validation, acceptance, this is what I need. I don't need that anymore. I see it, I celebrate it, I'm grateful for the part I played in their success, but I don't need it to prove that I'm worthy or good enough. I become free from it. And on the flip side, when I don't need to take on the criticism, when I don't need to have an aversion from it, when I don't need to be afraid of it, then I also get to show up authentically me. I get to honor where the person's being. I get to let other people be who they are. Let other people change their mind. Let other people live their life. Let other people have their opinions. Let other people create amazing success from what I teach and celebrate it. I set them free to do as they will with their minds, and I set myself free to create what I want with my life. And this will change everything. So I'm going to leave it with that today. Other people's opinions, what they think about you, your parenting, your kids, their behavior, all of that. Let's practice having a different relationship with that so that you can be free to create whatever you want in your life. And if you're listening to this live and you are intrigued by what I teach on the podcast about Connect Method Parenting, I just want to let you know that there's a pivot coming up. It starts October 7th. We're closing doors the 5th because we start our kickoff week, orientation week, the 7th. So if you're listening to this live and you want to reserve your seat, you can already do that. I know we still are a couple months out, but we're already taking applications and letting people secure their spots. So you can go check that out. I'll put the link in the show notes, but you can also go to connectmethodparenting.com and all the details will be there. Or I think it's cmp.com/pivot. You'll find all the info there too. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, you're going to want to check out the 8-week parenting pivot, which is the first phase of my program, the League of Extraordinarily Connected Parents. We're opening up a new round in October. So if you're listening to this live, it's going to be October 7th. If you're listening to this and that date has passed, go check out the website, connectmethodparenting.com, and we'll list the next time we're opening. But if you're listening to this live, go check it out because you can already apply and get accepted into the next round so that you can lock yourself in place to have a huge shift with your kids, to get them to want to listen to you, which is very different than using punishments, rewards, timeouts, ultimatums to get them to listen to you. We want it to be more cooperative. We want better listening. We want a great relationship, and we want to have a ton of fun when we're parenting. So if that's what you want, if what I talked about in this episode resonated, jump over to cmp.works/pivot. I'll put the link in the show notes as well, and find out more about the pivot, apply to join, and we'll let you know if you get in. All right. Until next time, go connect with your kids. Have a blast. And pop back in for another episode soon about how to use connection, not correction, to get your kids to want to listen to you. See you later. Bye.